I see God, for example, as mystery with a capital M.
Justice is not a fancy word which we can slip in and out of prayers harmlessly.
He was a religious and political subversive.
When I first moved to Kansas City, where I lived for many years, I thought that the Santa Fe Trail was basically 2 wagon ruts headed out of Kansas City all the way across the Southwest to Santa Fe. When I got there, however, and began to explore that trail and ride many miles of it, I discovered that it was far more than a couple of wagon ruts. In fact, it was quite wide. In places, the Santa Fe Trail was 6 miles wide. When I think about the tradition of the church, which I have great respect for, I think about that tradition in terms of the Santa Fe Trail. There are places where it's 6 miles wide.
The value of being able to live with a certain amount of uncertainty. I see God, for example, as mystery with a capital M, not a mystery that will ever be solved like a detective mystery ends with a solution on the last page, but that God is beyond all human symbols, words, concepts, and so forth. At best, our language can be a pointer to God. So we are dealing with an essential mystery here, a wondrous mystery, a glorious mystery. So living the questions means, to some extent, being able to live with a robust and confident uncertainty.
All stories are trying to put you in that realm of mystery so that immediately everything in your life is up for grabs. And every story, at the end, you're supposed to say, what if? What if?
One of the challenges for the church is that in the 1500s or so, science and religion went 2 different directions. And the Council of Trent said that what we understand the Bible to mean is what we tell you, and you should take that. Stop asking questions. Science, on the other hand, continued to ask questions. It continued to, 1, acknowledge the mystery, the things we don't understand, and to explore them. I believe that's the reason today we have 21st century weapons and we have 15th century peacemaking.
Jesus was a mystic. Jesus understood the profound unitive experience of his own being with creation and the Creator that way.
And he stands in that mystical stream of Judaism. A mystic, very simply, being a person who has vivid and typically frequent experiences of God or the sacred. So I see Jesus as one who, like Moses, and like other figures we could name, was a person who knew God. It's not just that he believed in God, but he's one who in his own experience had experiences of God or the sacred or the Spirit.
It seems to me that Luke really wants to say that the birth of Jesus is an interruption and a challenge and an ongoing dispute with all the powers of this age. I saw a painting from the 15th century in, I can't remember the artist, Italian, in which Mary is holding the baby Jesus, and the baby Jesus has got his fingers on the Greek text of the Magnificat, which is that revolution. And so I like to think that Jesus got the the DNA of revolution in his fingertips, as Luke wants to tell it that way.
Jesus was not born in a city or to a family that was upper class. Jesus lived his life among the people who were the most marginalized, both by church and society. He was a religious and political subversive. That's who Jesus really was. They didn't kill him because they thought he was the Son of God. They killed him because he was mobilizing people on the hillside.
Jesus turned his world upside down. My reading of the story of Jesus, especially the Markan story of Jesus, is that it was all about crossing borders. Everywhere where the religious and political culture said that borders shouldn't be crossed, Jesus intentionally challenged the border and stepped into the other world.
I will sing a song of love to the one who first loved me, and I'll sing it.
Justice is not a fancy word which we can slip in and out of prayers harmlessly. God's justice affects the fabric of this world and the integrity of its people. And somewhere in the church's song, which is sung in response to God's commandment, God's kingdom of justice has to be celebrated.
And I'll sing for what is right and against all that is wrong, because God is never neutral, who inspires my song. I will sing a song of love to the one who first loved me, and I'll sing it as a child of God who is named unknown and free. For the love of God is good, it is broad and deep and long, and above all else that matters, God is worthy of my song.
How can you, if you are not sensitive to women who cry out on account of their oppression, or if you're not sensitive to religious people, as even Muslims who cry out on account of their situation, if you are deeply and genuinely liberated by God's grace, you got to have sensitivity to other causes of oppression, because you can't be a Christian and be insensitive to freedom and to the deliverance from oppression.
And to me, that's the heart of the Christian life. As St. Paul said, dying and behold, we live. And it's not just in the act of our death, it's the way we pour out our life. You know, the giving, the expenditure of our life for the community in love is a form of dying. And when we can be driven by love, when we can be motivated by love to give our lives on behalf of others and not count the cost, that too is a form, is it not, of resurrected life? That we are alive even as we give our life and we die. And when we recognize that in the saints, in people who do it, and always they say, well, love, it's not labor, it's not a sacrifice, it's love. Because they're caught up, there's a transformative love where you can give your life and you give it in love.
Faith is a journey. If we knew the destination, we wouldn't need churches. We could just let people know. I mean, you know, the disciples call themselves followers of the way. The life of a Christian person is to find practices that take us closer and closer to union with God, to the heart of God. We find all kinds of ways to do that, but the process of faith, I think, is trial and error and is risk-taking. That we, you know, God tends to lead us to places that challenge us and that are painful and difficult, and life takes us to places that are shattering. And faith is that we will survive that place, and we will be better and larger and more compassionate people for that place. And that, you know, we go to the brink of death and we survive over and over and over again.